Everybody ready to go? Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of Edina. It is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. I think you heard Director Bennerott, if you were in chambers, that we're doing these meetings in a hybrid fashion. We've been doing them all during COVID and post-COVID. So in this post-pandemic era, people can still watch us from home and participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. If there are public hearings, they can participate that way, and if there are comments that people want to make, they can either make them here in chambers if they come into the meeting live, or they can do it remote. There are ways to get a hold of us. I think that the numbers will be on the screen here momentarily. You should be aware of those numbers that you can call in on. So if you're watching on cable TV or on edinamn.gov live meetings or Facebook, this is the way you access the meeting, so that you can get in to talk to the council about a matter of concern to you. So having provided that information, let's call the meeting to order. I'll ask our clerk, Sharon Allison, to call the roll. Clerk Allison.
Councilmember Agnew. Here. Councilmember Jackson. Here. Councilmember Pierce. Here. Councilmember Risser. Here. Mayor Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got a form of meeting agenda that's been published with respect to this meeting of the City Council. Is there anyone on staff or council that wishes to modify the meeting agenda in any form or fashion? All right. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved. Second.
All right. Member Jackson moves. Member Agnew seconds the approval of the meeting agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And now we are going to move on to community comment. So if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on a matter of concern to them, please come forward. Recall that if it's on the agenda this evening or scheduled for a future public hearing, those are topics that will be off limits. Other than that, we're interested in hearing what you're concerned about, and you'll have 3 minutes. And you'll get a yellow warning light when your 3-minute time period is about to expire, and please try to wrap up right on the red light. And so we treat everybody the same. Good evening.
David Frankel, 4510 Lakeview Drive. I'd just like to comment on the city manager's comment about the flag issue in the last city council meeting I made a comment about. The cities of at least the cities of Richfield and St. Louis Park managed to figure out how to lower the flag at the appropriate time. I'm not quite sure why Edina couldn't figure it out. So even though it was a little bit of late notice, do have a lot of 24/7 staff work for the city of Edina, and if you'd like, I'd volunteer to lower the flags on weekends. It's not that big a deal. I've done it for other facilities. The other issue is Arden Park. You know, you would never know, aside from a new building and a new playground, millions of dollars were spent on that park. It is a disaster. I just drove by it, and the so-called holding ponds are overflowing about 2 inches before they're going to get into the playground. If they get in the playground, they're going to wash out all the wood chips that are in the playground there. But also, I don't understand how those are called holding ponds. They don't hold water. It's basically part of the creek. It just flows right down into the creek, and right now it's overflowing into the creek. There's a little waterfall from those so-called holding ponds into the creek. There's all kinds of dead and dying trees in the park. There's at least a half dozen newly planted trees that are dead, and there's overgrowing trees and shrubs in the park. I don't understand the complete lack of maintenance. I complained at least 10 times for 2 months to remove some debris that was cut down 2 months ago. And it was finally done today for some strange reason. So I need better maintenance in these parks, not to mention the drinking fountain issue in that park, which you may be aware of. Not only is the outdoor drinking fountain not ADA compliant, I complained several months ago that there was bird feces on that fountain, and nothing was done about it for about a month. At that time, a bird managed to put a nest above the fountain, and until recently had some young chicks in its nest. So it was more feces was landing on that fountain. I don't understand why that fountain wasn't covered and why the bird's nest wasn't removed when a citizen, that being me, complained about something. I realize I'm a bad faith actor, but 99% of the things I email and send to the council are factual. I don't give opinions on things, it's factual. The other issue is, among other things, is the pedestrian bridge over in Grandview. A couple of the signs have been taken down. It's an open bridge. The official policy is that bridge is closed. As far as I can tell, it's open. So those signs need to be kept up if the bridge is closed. It's easy enough to do. Again, I'll volunteer to do it, but I don't do things without permission. If city manager wants to give me permission to hang those signs back up, I'll do it. Thank you.
Hello. Cole DeVries, 6900 Southdale Road, but the issue that I'm referring to tonight is for 4501 Southdale Road. I know all the council people saw me up in the work plan meeting, and I have to tell you, I am beside myself at the lack of progress that is being made on any of my issues that I repeatedly bring up. I'm looking for guidance as to how I'm not going to lose my $45,000 that's in escrow for the Edina tree policy when the person who is buying my new construction house does not want any more trees on there. The lot cannot hold that many. Repeatedly, I've asked everyone up here to try to give me some sort of guidance as to how this money is not just going to evaporate at the end of the month when I close on the property. Because of this, I've had to now retain counsel and go down that path because I get no direction. The other thing that I would like to speak on is the conduct of the forester's office to myself throughout this process. It's very confusing to me that Luther has the time to go out and catalog all of my trees that we cut down. He has the time to drive by my house every single day for almost 2 months and harass my builder about being shut down because we're moving tree barriers because we have to get machinery in and out of the site. Then he has the time to call the police on me twice to forcefully remove people from my job site because we are not paying we were not paying the tree ordinance because none of our questions could be answered, as they still can't. And then the money was extorted from me in the fashion that the Edina police came to my house, removed the people so I cannot conduct business anymore, and I have to pay the money then. And now I have gotten zero direction as to how I'm going to get the money back. I have asked him 2 times to please meet me out there and tell me how and where I'm going to plant 20 plus trees on this lot and not have the lot become a game of Plinko for the next owner when the owner also doesn't want them. And I don't know what to do. I feel like my city has very severely failed me, and I wish that someone could give me a direction when I'm trying to work with everyone at city, and no one's doing that.
Thank you, Mr. DeVries. Anyone else wish to address the council that's here in chambers? All right. Anybody online?
I do have a caller online, but the caller is not signaling to speak. Caller, if you'd like to speak, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. That will indicate your desire to speak. That's the asterisk symbol, then the number 3. Still not seeing any activity.
Okay. All right. Our practice is that we take these comments and our staff will assess them and then put something online by Friday of this week in terms of a response to the concerns that were raised by our residents. So in the case of Mr. DeVries, that may be a little bit more difficult because it involves a tree ordinance, but nonetheless, we'll continue to work on that issue. And then we always have the city manager respond to any community comments that were made at the prior meeting that needed to be addressed in addition to putting the answers online at the prior week. So, City Manager Neal.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had 3 questions that we responded to at our site online, and I'll summarize those responses tonight. First question was, why was the Maison Green allowed to open without adequate parking? We did a parking study for the development, and that was considered by the Planning Commission and City Council. Study concluded there was adequate parking on the site. I think what we've been seeing is the impact of construction going on at the same time they're trying to open their restaurant. And so we've had a lot of traffic in that area, and we're still kind of sorting out where construction workers are parking versus where restaurant customers are parking. That is going to resolve itself, we think, fairly soon. And we have done some signage over there with marking no parking in the park across the street, and also kind of around the corner on the frontage road going to the south. Question was, we had another question regarding lowering of our flags. We have a protocol in-house where when we receive the official notice from the governor's office, Jennifer Benarad is the person on our team who's been designated as the recipient of those official notice. When she receives an official notice, we have a series of folks who work in all of our different facilities who go out and do the flag lowering. Sometimes those orders are issued outside of regular business hours. I think the last one we got on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. We don't always have adequate staffing at those facilities to make that decision. People are at home on a weekend. We don't call them back to work to lower the flag. We instead lower it as soon as we can on the next business day that somebody's there in working at that particular facility. Final question was, how is transportation factored in when the city considers a proposal for something with greater density? We do pay a great amount of attention, actually, to what happens to transportation needs and concerns around density. And when density increases, we work with building developers and with our own staff and with council and planning commission. Again, we do a traffic study typically in cases where that's demanded. We also have a travel demand management policy that requires developments of a certain size to implement strategies to encourage biking, walking, transit, etc. So that's what we had. Thank you.
Good. Quick question for you. So with respect to the new restaurant, Starling, they've got some parking there. I take it on weekends or nighttime, people could park over by the historic buildings in that parking area. And then what about the City Hall parking lot? That's a public parking lot. People can certainly park in the City Hall parking lot and walk over there, I would think.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think our signage around the park, Tuba Park's spots now is no restaurant parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. We consulted with the Parks Department, and they couldn't put a time on when that facility was used for various events. So we put signs up today that say no restaurant parking on Tupa Park. We have signs going up around City Hall that says City Hall parking only, because during the day we were running out of spaces for our own customers coming to City Hall. And then our Traffic Safety Committee is reviewing Wilson Road, what we should do going down Wilson Road for one-sided parking, two-sided parking, where that should land between those driveways there, between the new development and the next commercial property to the south.
We didn't want them
people
to.
could park along Eden here. People park there all day long.
Our staff, our employees do. Yeah.
Well, it's an allowable parking area, I would think.
Yes, that's allowed for restaurant parking on Eden Avenue.
Okay. Has that been communicated to folks at Starling so they can communicate that to their customers?
Yes, we have. Yep.
Okay, good.
What we objected to initially with them was advertising that people could park in the City Hall parking lot, and we just didn't. We told them not to do that, and they did it anyway. So we told them to not do it again, and because we didn't want there's the usage of the restaurant has some conflicts with the usage of this building, so we wanted to make sure that wasn't happening.
It seems to me there wouldn't be a conflict in the evenings or on the weekends.
In the evenings, there's not. No.
Did we let them park here in the evening or on the weekend in the City Hall parking lot, or does it say no parking at any time?
The signs we're putting up was going to say City Hall parking only. Council wishes us to put some kind of hours to that. We have various events and all different hours.
Let people park there in the evenings and on the weekends if there's room. Member Risser?
I think that's opening up kind of a Pandora's box, because this is a public facility, and starting to allowing the parking lot to function as an asset for a private restaurant, I think, is something that I would not want to recommend.
Regno.
I think we have a lot of parking, and I think it feels silly to have it go unused nights and weekends. So I would definitely support allowing City Hall parking nights and weekends.
Okay,
Yeah,
we can talk about that.
I would as well. I don't know, Member Pierce?
I'm not opposed to that. My bigger concern would actually be the parking study. And so I understand that there's lots of construction parking over there. I'm hoping that once that's done, this will be resolved. But I really have a bigger concern if that is not going to be the case. So I think if we can validate that to whatever extent that we can and allow temporary parking to abate this particular issue, that would make sense to me. But it shouldn't be long-term that we would need to do that.
That's right.
Member Jackson, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the construction parking. I think the restaurant during off hours would be fine, just as long as during business hours, this is for city council or for city hall purposes.
No, I agree with that too. Okay, I hope that provides some guidance for you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council members based on Manager Neal's comments? All right, we've got some hockey players out there. Can you hear me, hockey players? Come on in. Oh yeah, we got to come on. Yeah, in anticipation that we're going to get to you in a minute. So yeah, I'm glad you could come in. So we've got the next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there anyone? Member Risser would like to remove item 6C. Does anyone else on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda in a single motion with the exception of 6C?
So moved.
Second.
Member Pierce moves, Member Agnew seconds the adoption of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion with the exception of 6C. All those in favor of adoption of the motion stated say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Motion's approved. Those items are adopted on the consent agenda with the exception of 6C. We'll now turn to Member Risser on 6C and leave it to you to address what you want to address there with respect to the potential approval of the Edina Historical Society Service Agreement.
Thank you. And I think the service agreement is very good about providing us information regarding process and standards. It's very limited in terms of actual metrics. And I'm thinking it would be so helpful because this is a visible entity that we support in the city of Edina. If we were to get information that perhaps is presented to the board on an annual basis, I'm thinking, is there a collection policy? What amount of money are they taking in? What kind of objects are they taking in? Do they have a policy for deacquisitioning? The facility has limited space. We're now in the era where a lot of people are downsizing and trying to get rid of things. And so one of the problems that institutions have is just sort of being deluged with objects and just wanting to make sure that we're being really mindful about how collections are developed. So just wanting to get more information and feeling like maybe we need to have a stronger connection with the Edina Historical Society. So I wanted to put that out there.
Right. Thank you. Member Risser, would you care to move the matter? I'm going to go to Manager Neal first. Manager Neal? Then we'll move the matter.
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of council. I think Councilmember Risser raises some very good questions that we don't really have answers for. A lot of those kinds of questions we just haven't had the kind of tight relationship with the Historical Society over the years. It would be nice if we were going to be a bigger financial booster and contributor to the site that we get some kind of presence on their board of directors. That would be something, we're working on something like that at the Chamber of Commerce as well. Councilmember Risser would be a valuable board member to them as well, as she has some skills and experiences that would be of particular value to that organization.
I would be interested in serving on the board if that would work out, if the Historical Society is all right with that.
Okay, all right. Well, let's take care of the business at hand. It sounded like you were satisfied with what you saw relative to the Edina Historical Society Services Agreement.
Well, sort of. I think we need to have more information coming to us. And so I'm okay with it, but we do need to move in a direction where we're getting more substantial information.
Understood that, but with respect to the business we have at hand of potentially approving this services agreement tonight, do you care to move it, or do you want somebody else to move it?
So move.
All right.
Second.
Member Risser moves the adoption of the Edina Historical Society Services Agreement. Member Pierce seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the Edina Historical Society Service Agreement say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. That agreement is approved. And now, thanks for wandering in, young ladies. We've been trying to, and it was incidentally great to see all of you over at the legislature, all of you that were there a month or so ago when Representative Edelson and the rest of our delegation had all the winning teams and robotics and debate over there at the same time in the House chambers. But we've thought at the City Council it would be wonderful if before the school year is over if we can get all the state championship teams here. And so we're really grateful that you came in tonight. So if you want to all walk up front, and we're going to get a photo. We're going to have all the council come down with us, and then, yeah, come on down. We're going to. Photo, and then we're going to have. Okay, let the mayor in the middle there somewhere.
Yes.
Are you being seen?
Yes.
All right, this is very, very bigger. All right, this is going to be a little better because it's wider. Big smiles, big smiles. Good.
Okay, hold on now. I'm going to just pass this microphone down the line. You can identify yourselves. So just pass it. Go ahead. You start. Yeah, first and last name.
My name is Stella Hankinson. I'm Brenna Prelwitz. I'm Gina Russo.
I'm Whitney Horton.
I'm Charlotte Thurl. I'm Camille DeBook.
I'm Taylor Gardner.
I'm Kaylee Drogo-Lamb.
I'm Tori Anderson.
I'm Kate McCoy.
I'm Nora Hannon. I'm Reese McConnell.
I'm Taylor Porthan.
I'm Kayla Starr.
I'm Nora McConnell.
I'm Libby Moe.
I'm Megan Arsenault.
I'm Lorelai Nelson.
I'm Hannah Halverson.
All right, great. Thanks, young ladies. And then, Captain, they were more than 8 years old.
Before you leave tonight, Mayor Hovland has a gift for you. They are coasters for your drink holder in your car, and they say, no matter where you travel, know your hometown is proud of you. Congratulations on your state championship.
If we have captains, we could have you captains come up to the side podium. Give us any thoughts you have about the season. It was really quite exciting at the state tournament game. It was a tough goalie to beat and great shots.
Stuff here.
make the ones that get on that side, yeah. Maybe reintroduce yourself again and tell us a little bit about your experience this year.
I'm Hannah Halverson again. I was senior captain this year, and yeah, winning state this year was definitely the best feeling. Just being with these girls was so fun, and I wouldn't have asked for a better team with a better ending.
So now, tell us where you're going to school next year.
I'm playing hockey at Madison, Wisconsin.
All right, that's what I thought. You're going to Madison. All right. And you got a twin brother.
Yeah, I do, who also won the state championship.
And where's he going?
He's playing hockey in Boston, so juniors.
All right,
doing
very
that
good.
deal, yeah.
Okay.
You want to go?
All right, my name's Taylor Porthan, and I'll be playing hockey at the University of Connecticut next year. And I'd say this year was definitely very different because we faced a lot of adversity just throughout this season, and we weren't even sure if we were going to make it out of sections just because BSM was such a great team. So that made the whole experience of winning state just that much better.
Yeah, and we know that your dad is one of our firefighters,
Yes,
and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Norma McConnell, and I will be playing hockey at St. Olaf College next year. And kind of piggybacking off of what Taylor and Hannah said, I think this year the state championship was pretty special to everyone on the team. As Taylor said, we faced some adversity and had the most losses in an Edina season in a really long time. So I think a lot of we were the underdogs going into the tournament, and I think the state made the state championship that much worth it because we had to work harder than everybody else and prove everybody else wrong. And it was a perfect way to end my senior season, and I got to do it with my sister, so that was also kind of special. But yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Coaches and parents that are here, you want to stand up as well so we can recognize you? Thanks for coming in, and we hope you have a great summer, and then for next year for college, the best to all of you. And those that are not graduating, we hope to see you next year. Yeah. All right. Very good. Excuse me. As Taylor Porthan was up here, I was thinking about her dad, Todd Porthan, our firefighter, who was kind of on the firefighting equivalent of the SWAT team. And I remember years ago they were painting so there was a private contractor painting the water tower at Southdale. And some guy decided to go up there on his own on a Saturday to do some painting, and the wind started, and the whole thing got twisted up. And he couldn't get off of the platform he was on. And Todd Porthan went out there, and he went up the one side and over the top and down the other, and rescued that guy, got him out of there. But think about going over the top of that water tower in a high wind to rescue this painter that had been stuck up there, and then blowing around in the wind. It was remarkable, remarkable. So next item on this portion of the agenda is the proclamation regarding National Emergency Medical Services Week. And that proclamation reads as follows, and we've got Dave A. Miller here, our fire marshal, to accept the proclamation. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week, now therefore the City Council of the City of Edina does hereby proclaim May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week. The 50th anniversary of Emergency Medical Week theme is EMS Week, honoring our past, forging our future. We all encourage the community to observe this week and recognize those who selflessly serve for others. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves. Member Agnew seconds the adoption of the proclamation designating May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week in the City of Edina. All those in favor of adoption of the proclamation say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The proclamation is adopted. I'm going to bring this down and hand it to you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. As Mayor Hovland stated, my name is Davey Miller, and I currently serve as your fire marshal here in Edina. On behalf of our emergency responders, we appreciate your recognition of National Emergency or National EMS Week and all the work that our emergency responders do. Our emergency response starts with our emergency dispatchers, who are often giving critical advice to the caller during an emergency as they are dispatching our police officers, who are our first responders, and then our firefighter paramedics. This year's theme is honoring the past and forging our future. So I'd like to recognize those past emergency responders that have come before us and served graciously. And they have also given us the ability to look forward to the future of our organization. I thank the council and the residents of the city for their continued support of all of your emergency responders during National EMS Week. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, the next matter we have before us in this special recognitions and presentations portion of the agenda is a presentation by one of the representatives from MnDOT, Ryan Wilson, and Chad Milner is going to provide the introductory comments here, and then Mr. Wilson is the MnDOT West Area Manager, and we're eager to have his comments. So, Director Milner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, members of council. Every year or so, we have a representative from MnDOT come and share the projects that are going on in our area related to MnDOT's work. So this evening, like you mentioned, we have Ryan Wilson here, the West Area Manager, to share some of those projects that are impacting you and the residents of Edina, and then some of those cooperative projects that we're working together on. So we'll hand it off to Ryan.
Thank you, Chad. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be here. Greatly appreciate the invite. I will say I'm a bit remiss that we had to follow one of your two state hockey title celebrations. It's really nothing as positive or happy I can share as that. So congrats to your champions there. For those of you who maybe haven't, I think you've all been around and seen me, but just for the record, Ryan Wilson, West Area Manager. In our role in area management at MnDOT, really our job is to serve the communities that the highways of our highways that touch your community, your residents, your businesses. So that would be Highway 62, 100, 169, 494, just a stone throw over the city line. I also would like to introduce Kim Zleeman, who's in the back there, who is a new West Area engineer serving some of the roads in the city of Edina. So very happy to have her on the team. My goal is to touch on a couple things, hopefully leave a few minutes for questions at the end if you have any. The agenda on the screen here, a couple projects on 494, talk a little bit about that cooperative work that Chad was referencing, and then look a little bit forward. What do we have coming up that would be of interest to the City Council? Let me adjust that. All right, the 494 project, a lot of work going out on the corridor. I'm sure you are all seen it, experiencing it. What is the 494 corridor project? This is a graphic that is likely something that's come across your eyes before. When we did the corridor vision work for 494, we identified 9 elements to advance that project to where the vision is, where we worked with the communities on taking it into the future. What you see out there today is roughly constructing 4, 5, 3, 4, part of 5, and 7, and I'll show you that in a different graphic. We are also looking forward, trying to figure out ways to advance the remaining elements, so 6, 8, 9, 1, 2, 5. And that really takes us, again, mostly from 169 to the airport, right? The 169 to the airport vision for 494. The work you see out there today is on the screen here. So everything that's in kind of that shaded blue is what's being constructed now, which is why you see work over a lot of the corridor. It's, in fact, a work on a great deal of the corridor. And what this project doing, about $377 million in total cost. The primary objective is really addressing that construction of Easy Pass, so our high occupancy toll and managed lane from ultimately it will be hopefully from 169 to 77, but near term East Bush Lake Road to 35W. It's reconstructing that 35W 494 interchange. I use the word turbine, which I probably should have taken off there, but really it's a fancy way of saying it's going to be an interchange that looks kind of like it is today, with the exception of that northbound 35W to westbound 494 direct connection, which really is the capacity pinch point on that interchange. And then we also are doing all that work east of 35W, and so that is setting up for the future. We are setting up for work to happen ideally west of 35W, east of 35W in the next phase, and getting those bridges in the best position, the right position long term, helps us facilitate that next phase of work. Timeline, we did do a lot of work last year. We were working on the temporary widening, the crossovers, really focused on the Highway 135W area, getting that ready. This year, really primary focus on the eastbound Easy Pass, the work on the south side of the road. And you can imagine in 2025, we essentially flip that. We do most of the work on the north side or the westbound side of the road. And then ultimately, that final year is focusing on the final pieces of implementation. So constructing the ITS, or the Intelligent Transportation Infrastructure, to use and operate the Easy Pass system and kind of work on those last pieces of the bridges. And just real high-level principles about maintenance of traffic. You know, really our goal is to maintain 3 lanes in each direction during peak hours. Will occasionally probably be a challenge, but really that's the predominant goal during the bulk of construction. There are a lot of closures in this contract, more than any I have ever seen and worked on. 24 weekend, 96 overall allowed in the contract. Of course, our goal is to coordinate that with other projects in the area to try to minimize disruption to residents of Edina, the traveling public on the highway, the people trying to get over the highway on foot or vehicle, ramp closures, reduced lane, bypass geometry. You've seen that. Those are things that are going to be constant throughout the life of the project. I will just say we did a lot last year. I referenced that, reconstructing some of the ramps already. You've seen permanent pavement out there already if you've been driving around. We removed some buildings at Portland to facilitate that new interchange construction. We started the work on that flyover bridge. We started and completed a high number of our utility relocations. And also this is a design build contract, which what that means, a typical project would be we design it fully, we bid it out for a contractor, we construct it. In this case, we bid it out a approximately 30% project, and we start construction as we continue design. And so we've been working with the cities and our partners to kind of finalize those plans, and we're pretty much there at 100% plans as we speak. Just a couple facts. I don't always like including these, but I think there's so much volume of work on this project. They're interesting. We're talking about 80,000 truckloads of dirt that are going to be moved around on the project, 14 miles of storm sewer, Not all of that was ours. Some of it is local municipalities they're working with, but that's a big number as well. 4,000 truckloads, 80,000 tons of bituminous paving, and 50 football fields of concrete paving, which is really significant for an urban area. I don't know if I can quite wrap my head around that. And this is a drone shot, a recent drone, well, semi-recent now, drone shot of the work looking south towards Bloomington, and you can see in the center there, that's the new flyover bridge that's actually quite a bit farther along than this photo was taken. We do have a public information hotline. We have a website, a lot of information out there. You will see a lot of changes coming in a couple weeks to access points, particularly on the south side. We're going to be doing quite a bit of ramp work. Again, we talked about this year is focused on the south side of the road or the eastbound lanes. There's going to be some pretty significant ramp closures at 35W and 494 and 100 and 494, starting about mid-June through August to September, depends on which road we're talking about. So it will be a big impact summer for traveling along the 494 corridor. I did want to speak a minute on, and this is something that the city has supported us on in the past, and we're very grateful for that, and our other project partners and the 494 Corridor Coalition. We've been looking towards phase 2, so what could phase 2 be? There is about $379 million, so about the same value of remaining work on the corridor from 169 to 77. We have submitted recently 2 federal grants, so we have they're both in the federal bill, IIJA. One was a congestion relief application, and the other was a MEGA, which I didn't include the acronym because the acronym doesn't actually line up with MEGA. It's actually a different acronym, which I find to be very wonky, but it's basically, it's a large project grant from the federal government. And the schedule, if we were successful on one of these grants, would be to really pick up design. We're already executing and going to be evaluating a consultant for this next phase. We're going to be taking that design to about 30%, completing our environmental document for this next phase in hopes of getting a grant. If we get a grant, we would likely, though this decision needs to still be made, continue with the design build methodology to start construction on the tail of the current project. That would be the ideal state goal. We are prepared, and it's definitely a possibility to do the next work in phases. The most likely next phase would be 35W to the east to 77, with the last phase being 169 to Highway 100, or East Bush Lake Road, I should say, more specifically. I do want to touch for a minute on the bridge over the river. This is a bit farther afield, but just it may seem counterintuitive to some degree to do this work. In some ways, it's actually affecting the same travel shed, and really traffic patterns have been relatively manageable on the bridge construction if you've traveled over it during rush hour. Really a pretty comprehensive rehabilitation of that bridge, $62 million. It's a long bridge, as you all know. This work started last year. Reconstruct the joints, repair the deck, repair the bearings, work on the lighting, replace the bridge underside. There's a trail on the south side, if anybody's ever been on it. I have many times. It's not particularly great. That's going to get rebuilt and be a new trail moving forward, so that'll be a great new connection over the river. And last year, we really focused on that median space. This year, all the traffic is on the south side of the bridge, so the eastbound lanes, and we are working on the westbound lanes, so the north half of the bridge. We basically flip that next year and do the opposite and get most of this work done by the end of next year. Most of the impacts are pretty much in place as you're going to see them, as essentially going to be the status quo for the next 2 years. You can imagine that it's actually the same ramps that are impacted in both directions. And so those closures are going to impact the same ramps this year and next year. And it's basically, due to the merge conditions or due to being merging in the work zone. That is obviously not acceptable. And so we have that westbound 5 to eastbound 494 and 34th to eastbound 494 are effectively closed for the duration of the summer for both phases of construction this year and next. And other ramps, basically everything else you see out there now is as that is going to be for the bulk of summer. And then winter conditions, not unusual to most projects, would be back to normal operating conditions. So mainline and ramps open. We also have a public hotline information for this project as well, a relatively quiet public hotline, I would say, which is always a great thing. I want to talk on a couple things. I did not put a slide in here about the noise wall construction. I'll just acknowledge we have the noise wall construction between Gleason and Tracy on the north side of Highway 62. You all know it. A little slow start to some of the soil conditions, but we're getting the piles in place, and we're really going to be progressing pretty quick to that. Still anticipate a fall completion. No issues anticipated with the end point of construction, but off to a slightly slow start, which happens, but we are getting that back on track here, which is great. So I just want to acknowledge that. Talk a little bit about the Highway 100 project, the interchange at Vernon. Probably, and this is, I just wrote perspectives. I didn't really have a great way to characterize this. I came into my role 6 months ago, and while I live close by, I haven't spent too much work on this project. And so just want to acknowledge and thank the city for their leadership and partnership on this project. We're really at a good point in the project, working through 95% common plans. I took a skim at them the other week, and I think things are looking to be in pretty good shape. Few points of coordination with city staff, no different than any project, but I would say, tracking well overall. Working on our cooperative construction agreement, and as you all know, the eye towards that future conveyance, the property that's on the southeast side of the loop ramp, and you can see the configuration there from what it is today to the future, and we have that in process as well on our side of the house and working with the city. So really, I think on a good track there. Looking forward to seeing that rebuilt. I think the sidewalk bike connections across that are going to be a great addition. I go over that not infrequently myself, so I will be personally appreciative of that. So thank you for your leadership there. Finally, just wanted to touch on a few things in our STIP and SHIP. So when we talk about our STIP and SHIP, this is our 10-year plan. So the 4-year plan, the STIP is the things that we're programmed, we're committed to doing, or darn near committed to doing. And the 6 years beyond is where we're planning, looking ahead, trying to do the preliminary work. If we need to do a study, we do a study. So we have 2 things in here. One is the pedestrian bridge at 62 at Rosslyn Park there, just west of Valley View. Again, the city staff is leading that. Really have had some good conversations with Chad so far. I know you've had some action and discussion at the city council level in recent past, and I think we're working to the point of starting advancing that design and supporting the city in that effort. We do have a contribution ourselves of $3 million to that, and we're working on timing. I realize there's some conversations that might have to tweak how we work on getting the city that money, but I feel pretty good about that. We can work through any issues of coordination there. I will also point out, just big picture, we have a reconstruction of the Highway 100 bridges over Highway 62 planned in 2029, so that will be a notable impact. Not to bury the lead for the last slide, but I did want to talk about one change in the draft STIP. So this is what we sent to FHWA recently for publication. So in our 4th year of the STIP, we've moved in. You're all well familiar with that auxiliary lane on westbound 62 that's been in place. I've lived in my house in South Minneapolis since 2009, and it feels like that aux lane has been in place for most of that period of time. But we're looking at that auxiliary lane on the north side and westbound from Valley View to 100 and making that a permanent addition of the Highway 62 corridor. So what does that actually entail? It entails several things. So we have coordination with the city on the pedestrian bridge project we just talked about. There's been improvements ongoing in the Concordia neighborhood. I should have re-looked at this, whatever the neighborhood seems. Okay, there's a neighborhood on the south side, north side there, which I can never quite remember the name of in Edina, but coordination with improvements that are happening on the city streets there. I wanted to speak for a moment on the noise wall process. So you're well familiar with the standalone noise wall project. We just referenced one on 62. So our process on a project like this where we're adding capacity, which is what this is considered, adding capacity westbound, we're required to go through, we'll go through the federal National Environmental Protection Act policy, which requires a noise analysis. So we'll conduct a noise analysis. In this particular location, you might well be familiar that this is on the list of kind of identified spots that are likely to be cost effective. So I think our assumption, and you see this in the cost, well, if I shared the cost estimate, we're talking about, $12 to $15 million, and that's expecting that a noise wall will be shown to be cost effective. Important to point out that just because a noise wall is identified to be needed, which is likely to be the case here, and it's reasonable and cost effective, there is a process by which the residents vote on said noise wall, and just want to make that clear. So we go through the process of identifying it, and if you're an affected homeowner, there is a process that we have in place whereby we conduct 1 or 2, if necessary, voting periods to walk through that process and determine whether the noise wall is going to be built by the process. So we help facilitate with that. Your partnership certainly something we'll work really closely with Chad and staff on to just work through those designs and concepts and that coordination. But ultimately, if we go down that route, that will be a process that will eventually be it's always an eventful time having that process with the community. So timeline, as it stands today, we're going to be working toward that staff-approved layout, starting our final design next in 2026. So we're out a little bit, but this will come fast. complete the environmental process, including the noise wall outreach and voting as required, and then work towards construction. And I just always put on there that there will probably be some work the year prior. We need to do our tree removal in winter. I'm sure you're familiar with those types of things. And that's where we're at. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here. If there's time, Mr. Mayor certainly can stand for any questions. Otherwise, really appreciate and value the city's partnership and appreciate the chance to be here. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Wilson. That was a terrific presentation. It was good to get this update, and certainly appreciate having you as our West Area Manager. I think you're doing a really fine job for us.
Thank you,
all of us in this, in the area that you manage. So, any questions or comments, Member Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, you mentioned 64th Street, and when we talked with residents in that area about redoing the streets, they were very concerned about the coordination and also making sure that our brand new streets, when additional work is done, don't get damaged. So can you talk a little bit about the care that you're going to take with our brand new 64th Street when you put in the sound wall and the bridge?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Jackson, I appreciate the question. Driving by there frequently, I certainly see the work and appreciate that it's going on. I think I would say the following two things. One, we're really at the early stages of our work. We're in, I guess I would call it the early design kind of post scoping phase. And so we're really kind of putting major lines on the map. I think the most important thing right now is to make sure we're doing things in cooperation with the pedestrian bridge project and where our noise wall might be, and that they're supportive of each other. The next phase would be to kind of get to that detailed design phase and actually look at where the lines, it is very tight there on 62 relative to 64th. I think it'd be hard for me to imagine there is not like zero impacts to the road, but we need to work through that. Obviously, if there's, things we need to do on a temporary basis, it's our job to mitigate and correct that at the conclusion of the project. So we're certainly not going to leave a new road impacted long term. But I would anticipate there is at least some close coordination needed on that, given just how close those two facilities are to each other. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you for articulating that, because I know the neighbors are watching, and I appreciate your care.
Well, I would just offer that the city's managing the Ped Bridge project, so we'll do everything we can. In the auxiliary lane, maybe there's access from the highway where we don't even have to use too much of 64th Street. But that's just like Ryan mentioned, we'll coordinate between the two agencies on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, quickly, Chad brings up a good point, that the fact that we have a shoulder that's basically been used as a lane in the past and it's not been there for the traffic in the future, I think it gives us a workspace that maybe people are more familiar with. It might not normally exist on a project like this, so that's not to say there'll be no impacts, but Chad's right. I think there's some opportunities here that just site considerations are a little bit different than maybe some other locations.
Okay, good. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you coming in. The next matter we have in this portion of the agenda is a proclamation involving Preservation Month, which is May 2024. And the proclamation reads as follows: whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas Preservation Month 2024 is sponsored by the Edina Heritage Preservation Commission, now therefore we, the City Council of the City of Edina, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Preservation Month and call upon the people of Edina to join their fellow citizens in recognizing and participating in this special observance. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation as read?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves. Second. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of May 2024 as Preservation Month in the City of Edina. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the proclamation as read, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The proclamation is adopted. We've got our Heritage Preservation Commission Chair Jane Lundquist with us this evening. I'm going to walk down and hand this to Jane. I think she's got some remarks. Emily Dalrymple from our staff is here as well. And of course, we've got one other matter coming up right after this.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're sliding right into the next docket because the best part of Heritage Preservation Month, and I am chair of the Heritage Preservation Commission, is choosing an annual recipient of our Preservation Award. And I'm very happy to present this year's Edina Heritage Preservation Award to the founders of House Novel, a new community platform to easily document and share home history. So Amanda Zelke and Dave Decker, who will join us in a minute, launched this national website in 2022. They've uploaded public record photos and information for more than 600 homes in Edina, including more than 100 that are outside of the country club district. They've been very generous partners with our commission as we've developed our Century Homes program. They vetted and expanded our list of free research resources that are now on the city's website for this program so that homeowners can learn more about the history of their own homes. So they've created this free and fun tool for any homeowner to learn more about their home if they wish. And as an added bonus, co-founder Amanda Zelke was born and raised here in Edina, living primarily on Lois Lane, where her father still runs Edina Clock Repair out of the home. So thank you for your contributions to the historic fabric of Edina. Shall we invite you to come up, please? Okay. Yep, sure.
Do you want me to take one for you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That'd be great. I'll go on our stuff.
Of course, the Heritage Award presented to House Novel recognized their partnership in developing the Edina Century Home Program and digitizing historic photos of more than 600 Edina properties, and creating a tool for citizens to use with their details of stories. So, congratulations. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. And here's your plaque.
Thank you.
All right. Nope, you're fine. Okay. You're fine. You're fine. Couple more. Perfect. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Do you want to talk or do you want me to?
Feel free to join, but ultimately, we like to say if Zillow plus Ancestry.com had a baby, it would be a House Novel. So it's been a really fun ride, and it's a great way to preserve all the real moments that make a house a home. And so this summer, when you're having fun on the 4th of July or whatever holidays coming forth, make sure to capture all those magical moments with your family and upload them to HouseNovel.com.
Yeah.
We have 24,000 home records in the nation so far and continually growing, and so we're excited to keep partnering with Edina Heritage Society as well as other public resources to grow it as much as possible and hopefully become the nation's go-to home history resource.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a couple of things. So just like to celebrate, like you were saying, the Preservation Month, right? So we wanted to make something really fun for everybody to go on and use. And like what Councilmember Reiser was saying, that as there's this transition of homes that are happening throughout the U.S., there's a lot of really amazing stories and photos and history that we don't want to lose. And so, as, some of our historical societies are being overwhelmed with some of this information, we wanted to provide an opportunity for people to go on and be able to save as much home history as they can. And as we're starting to get new users for the last couple of years, we're finding like 90% of the people on our website really want to know about their house. And we're showing about like 10% of people are contributing, and we're helping people contribute, but people are super interested in this. So they're not only interested in their house, but we actually found a lot of people are interested to see if their house is haunted, specifically in the country club neighborhood. So there's a lot of interest in this, and it's a really fun time to be a part of this. And thank you to everybody here, to Jane. Being a part of the heritage preservation community is very rewarding, and we really appreciate your support.
Oh, one thing to add, it is a website to crowdsource home history. So you can also share with family and friends and make it a community effort. We like to say that everyone can be a historian. So get to sharing that home history with friends and family.
Yeah, well, congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Marissa, welcome. We're going to have you give us an update on the Climate Action Plan and the Conservation Sustainability Fund as well. So glad to have you here.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Again, Marissa Baer, Sustainability Manager. And the sustainability updates, I'll be reflecting on 2023 and the Climate Action Plan progress, and then also thinking a little bit as we look ahead to achieving our goals and as we work to fight climate change. So just as a reminder, the Climate Action Plan was adopted in 2021 and creates a vision that helps all those who live and work in Edina to thrive. This vision is achieved through 8 sectors, 36 strategies, and 218 actions to achieve by 2030. So that 9 years reflects from 2021 to 2030. With the Climate Action Plan, it sets a goal to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions 45% by 2030 and then achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And noting that this is community-wide, so all buildings, all residents, all businesses, all folks who travel. You can see on the chart there, so that chart's reflecting across buildings, transportation, waste, water, emissions, the progress towards achieving that goal. And so looking against a 2019 baseline, that's how the goal was set. We will always measure against 2019. Based on a 2021 greenhouse gas inventory that was completed, we've reduced emissions 15%. Those emissions reductions have been primarily achieved through grid decarbonization, so Xcel Energy is investing in cleaner generation for electricity. So as our buildings consume electricity, that electricity is greener, reduced emissions on that side. We've also reduced emissions just through reduced natural gas consumption. 2021 was a fairly warmer winter, so natural gas use went down. We use natural gas primarily to space heat and water heat. So as we don't have to use natural gas, those emissions had reduced. And then also have reduced vehicle miles traveled, likely due to COVID and changing commuting patterns. So people were driving less and those emissions in the transportation sector reduced. Our next update is going to be happening this year. So in 2024, we will be completing the 2023 greenhouse gas inventory. And so this will be giving us better insight into the ongoing community pattern changes. Are those permanent changes? So as we look at grid decarbonization, that has happened. Those investments have been made. Those will continue to benefit our emissions as we look forward, where transportation, that is a variable. So we will see if those commuting patterns are those permanent changes that people have made, and then also better understand the impact of policy changes and engagement that we've really been focusing on the past 2 years in terms of sustainability, electrification, the incentives that we've been offering. So that's what that 2023 inventory will provide us. As we think about the city of Edina, so thinking of the municipal enterprise, the previous graph, that was all emissions in the community. As we think about the municipal enterprise, we represent only 1% of community-wide emissions. However, when we focus just on that, we are leading by example. And the city of Edina has reduced its emissions 35% from 2019 to 2021. It's primarily driven by efficiency and grid decarbonization in the electricity emissions, but we also have made improvements on natural gas, solid waste, and wastewater treatment. We did have an increase in transportation emissions just through increased vehicle usage, but overall, City of Edina's emissions have been reducing, which we are very proud of, and there's a really great demonstration of the way we've been investing in our assets, and both on the building and vehicle side. The way we're achieving our Climate Action Plan goals, so we're activating through events, through workshops, engaging with people, and creating that awareness through communications, outreach, both on our website, both through conversations, different marketing campaigns, and then also just through holding ourselves and our community accountable. So there's reporting that is done, that greenhouse gas inventory, there's an online dashboard, there's this annual presentation, so really being able to share our story. As we work to implement the Climate Action Plan, this work is primarily funded through the Conservation and Sustainability Fund, acronym CAS, you'll see, and this is supporting the implementation of the strategies. The CAS Fund is primarily funded through utility franchise fee revenue, and that balance rolls over year. So any funding we don't use, that rolls over and continues to support the Climate Action Plan implementation. At the beginning of 2023, the starting balance was $2.37 million in that CAS fund, and approximately $1.668 million was spent in 2023, and the majority of those expenditures, approximately 76%, was spent on city vehicle, infrastructure, and capital investment to further electrify our buildings, electrify our fleet, and increase energy efficiency in our buildings as well. You can see that was about double the amount of expenditures. So from 2022, we spent about $846,000 on CAS fund expenditures, both on municipal side as well as community policy implementation. And then 2023 almost doubled those expenditures. So having that rollover balance year over year really allows us to make a further impact. And you can really see, in part possibly as we look at our inventory and reflecting on 2023, we can see both on a citywide and hopefully on a community-wide that we're making an impact as we think about some of those policy and outreach initiatives. So as I mentioned, the Climate Action Plan has 8 sectors. So as we reflect on that, I'm going to kind of walk through implementation progress here, kind of highlight a few things that have happened across the different sectors. And at just a very high level, nearly 50% of actions have been started or completed in the Climate Action Plan. And I'm talking about those 218 actions between now and 2030. Before I dive in deeper, I just want to reflect on last year. There were a lot of accomplishments completed by the Sustainability Division, by staff, by the community. I'm not going to touch on each one on this screen, but just to highlight a few, I think a big win is just growing the Sustainability Division's capacity by hiring a new sustainability specialist. And then also last year, we hosted a Green Corps member. We were selected again for this upcoming Green Corps year to host another member, so we're able to continue that capacity. The city subscribed to Xcel Energy's Green Power Purchase Program, formerly called WindSource, now called Renewable Connect Flex, to meet our 100% municipal renewable electricity goal. So as of today, we can say the city of Edina, our municipal electricity is from 100% renewable energy, which is really exciting. We've also been focusing a lot that last year to educate the community on home electrification, renewable energy, waste reduction, and trees through various events and workshops. And then also had kicked off studies for fleet electrification, solar suitability, and EV charging capability across our community, which will inform future actions, policies, and decisions that we might make. So looking into that implementation progress by sector, I'll start off with the transportation and land use. So nearly 40% of the strategies, 28 total, 11 have been underway or are completed. Some highlights from there are their green fleet policy. So as the city of Edina replaces vehicles, we're focusing on zero emission or lower emission vehicles, both on light duty, and we've started a study to look at that medium and heavy duty opportunities that exist, because that's a little bit harder nut to crack as we think about those larger vehicles that the city owns. Resilient Homes Grant targeting naturally occurring affordable housing properties near transit, and then also a collaboration between the University of Minnesota and Metropolitan Council on that analysis to meet our transportation emission goals, which was a presentation at the previous council meeting. As we look at the built environment, so buildings, energy, in our community, some success here. So 46 strategies total, 22 have already been underway or completed, so approximately 48% of the strategies within this specific focus area. Successes include the Efficient Buildings Ordinance and the Sustainable Building Policy, so looking at buildings in our community, can they benchmark their energy use, making that a requirement so they can make informed decisions as they look at efficiency, as they look at building upgrades, building management, and then the Sustainable Building Policy really applies to new construction. So as new buildings come into our community as a condition of funding or PUD approval, we ask them to build a little bit more sustainable than they would have just based on code. We've completed a lot of city efficiency projects such as lighting upgrades, building automation system, HVAC improvements. I mentioned those solar and EV suitability studies are underway to help us make better decisions, make that a data-informed decision as we look ahead, that 100% renewable electricity, and then the Climate Action Fund cost share program. So on the screen here is a handful of the sectors and kind of split across two. So on the left side is that natural system. So as we think about natural systems, we've grouped water, waste, and green space. So that includes trees and planted areas. And so within those three sectors, 68 strategies total, and 31 are already underway or completed, so approximately 45% within across all of those. Some successes are just the organics program, organics recycling program participation has been really successful. There is opportunity to grow, but I think we should reflect and be proud of where we are at today. The green to go packaging and carry out bag fee ordinances as it relates to waste, the next gen trees initiative as it relates to the tree, and then also amendment updates to the residential tree protection ordinance and the turf and weed ordinance enforcement as well. Moving over to the right side of the screen, that we've classified that as human systems. So we're thinking of local food and agriculture, climate health and safety, and the climate economy. Across these 63 strategies total, only 10 have been underway and completed. So compared to the other ones, only about 16%. So not as much movement here, but there has been success as we look at sustainability financing and incentives, creating a community cost share program to be able to make efficiency improvements, electrify their home, their business, purchase an e-bike, community gardens that exist in our community, the Weber Park Food Forest, and then also really great collaboration amongst the Edina Public Health Division with other partnerships and other organizations. So that's kind of as we reflect on the human systems. So all of this work together, those are the successes, but something I wanted to acknowledge and just start thinking about is some implementation challenges. So as we look across this, there is limited staff capacity to tackle 200 plus actions. That's a lot to do between 2021 and 2030. I do want to acknowledge, 50% is already underway. That's a lot of low-hanging fruit. Those are a lot of easy actions, and so there's bigger lifts on the horizon here as we look to our 2030 goals. There are some strategies in the Climate Action Plan that are just outside our scope or our sphere of influence. So example is it looks to building code updates. The city of Edina as an organization cannot make those. That's at the state and legislature level. There are some delays in funding opportunities. So a few years ago, the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, billions of dollars. Everyone was really excited, all of these rebates, all of this financing. A lot of delay in that funding actually making it into people's hands. We're now thinking that the IRA rebates are probably not going to come until next year. So people are waiting to take action because they know money is coming. They know rebates are on the horizon, so people are delaying those decisions. And then as we look at those individual decisions, an individual action is a small incremental change that's not realized right away. So someone who may have electrified their home last year, that's not reflected immediately. Those are long-term. It takes a little bit of time for that to be reflected as we look at our greenhouse gas inventories. The land use and density strategies, that's the decisions we make today, those are going to impact future projects, and that's what you may consider tonight or in a future council meeting. Those are long-term things as we look ahead. And then behavior change is just a really hard thing to influence. As we look at energy use, conserving water, reducing waste, we can educate, we can inform people, but to truly have someone make a change in their behavior, a lot of intervention points are needed, and a lot of people need to lead by example. And so it is just, some challenges that we might face as we look towards achieving our goals. This is a lot of information. I know I walked through a lot of strategies, a lot of successes. There is an online dashboard available through Invisio, the Climate Action Plan. Folks can navigate themselves, see what has been accomplished, go through the sectors, look at the different strategies and see updates that have made and the progress. And so just want to remind people that this is available on our website for people to explore. So as we think about the CAP sectors and focusing our efforts, so we are in May 2024, we have approximately less than 6 years to achieve our goals. So as we think about focusing our efforts and looking at the data, looking at our greenhouse gas inventory, just to contextualize a little bit, as we look at reducing our emissions between now and 2030, 97 of those emissions reductions have to happen in 2 of our 8 sectors, in the transportation sector and the building sector. That represents 97% of all emissions that need to be reduced between today and 2030. Waste management and water and wastewater represents the remaining 3%. And then the bottom strategies, local food and agriculture, green space, climate health, climate economy, those represent, there are adjacent greenhouse gas emission reduction benefits. They're not part of our inventory. They're not quantifiable in a way to say we've planted this tree, we've reduced emissions by this much. But there is a huge benefit of those sectors. Climate resilience, climate equity are all very important. So it's not to say we shouldn't focus on those sectors, but as we think about really where do we want to be putting our staff time, future resources, potential policies to achieve our climate goals, we really need to focus on those transportation and building sector to really truly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So looking ahead, so 2024, a lot of work is already underway. So we're looking at grants and programs to do biofuel retrofits for our heavy-duty fleet. If we receive that funding, we'd be able to reduce emissions for some of our larger vehicles, which is really exciting. We'll be completing those solar and EV charging studies, so we'll know better of where are the opportunities to install solar in city buildings, where are the opportunities to actually put electric vehicle charging, and be able to bring that forward to council and to staff as we make those decisions. Obviously, continuing the education and outreach, continuing those facility efficiency upgrades projects, grant project implementation. So we've received about $1.3 million already for different projects. And so the implementation of those grants has started. And then, as I mentioned, that biennial greenhouse gas inventory will be completed this year. All of this leads into next year, and so there will be the ongoing policy and program implementation. But part of the Climate Action Plan identifies an action of a midpoint evaluation to say, what have we done? Where should we go? And so that will be informed by the greenhouse gas inventory and all these other studies and opportunities. When the Climate Action Plan was adopted, the Inflation Reduction Act did not exist. So are there new strategies? Are there new things to be added into that Climate Action Plan? So that midpoint evaluation, that'll be something I'll start kind of thinking about, start structuring, and that will happen in 2025. And then from 2026 to 2030, implementation will continue based on that midpoint evaluation. The pie chart you can see on the screen, that just kind of shows those reductions. So as you can see, between transportation and buildings, that was the majority, but transportation, when you look at it, is about 56% of all emissions that need to be reduced between now and 2030, followed by buildings, approximately 41%, followed by waste and water. So a little bit smaller pieces of the wedge. Still important reductions are needed to be made, but the majority is from kind of primarily two sectors. And that's all I have. I will thank you for receiving this information. I know I've been here, 3 months now, I think, to work on all of this. But I appreciate any questions and comments you might have.
Ways to go and some real challenges ahead of us as we work on the things that are most obvious, the buildings and the transportation, creating most of our problems in terms of greenhouse gas production. So, Councilmember Jackson, who shares a strong affinity for the work you're doing.
Yes. So, wow. Thank you for all that information. That's a lot to take in. So I actually have a number of questions. When we're talking about building and transportation emissions, we're talking about overall, not just city, but also
Correct.
Private actors as well.
Yes.
So how are electric vehicles figured into the vehicle miles traveled? Because it's probably, I'm guessing, traffic count, but if it's how do we measure the electrification of the fleet overall?
So for municipal emissions, it's much easier to say we have this many electric vehicles. We know how far they've driven compared to our others. So for our own city of Edina, capital C municipal enterprise, it's easy to incorporate. As we look at the broader community, so a best practice to calculate transportation emissions is looking at that vehicle miles traveled. An emissions factor is applied to the number of miles that happen in a community. Those emissions factors are informed by the EPA, by the federal government. And so as more electric vehicles are added to the road, those emissions factors change, but we can't say we know for sure this 1 mile came from an EV, this one came from a hybrid, this came from a heavy duty. And so it is a formula that we're provided. So EVs benefit our community, it helps, but we don't see it necessarily as a direct impact as more EVs just because of the nature and the inability for us to be able to confidently say we know this percentage was driven by an electric vehicle versus a combustion engine.
Okay. Is there any talk about talking with the Department of Motor Vehicles and the registration? So we know that X percent of vehicles in Minnesota are electric. I think that might be an interesting, it's more work. I hate to give you more work, but an interesting question to ask.
Yeah, so we are able to see, so the state of Minnesota, as well as a few other DOTs, it's called the EV Atlas. And so we can see by zip code, based on vehicle registration data, how many EVs exist in a zip code. Unfortunately, we can't drill down to the city boundary anymore just because of various data privacy, but we all are able to see at aggregate through a zip code. So we could make an estimate for how many electric vehicles exist in Edina just through some different analysis, but that data is available and something we could bring forward and share.
Terrific, thank you. We're going to get a new hockey rink. and it's being refitted, and the taxpayers of Edina and the voters of Edina, thank you very much for that upgrade. How are we planning on measuring that? Do we have a baseline in place for the energy use now, and so when it's all finished, where that lands us?
We would have that information. So we benchmark all city data. So energy consumption is publicly available through the B3 benchmarking platform, and so we do know that baseline, how is the building being used today based on the current square footage. As more new additions happen, whether it's an ice arena at Braemar or somewhere else, we are able to see that increase and can attribute it. And then with that too as well, we're able to think as a new ice rink, there's a lot of efficiency improvements already planned for Braemar, so we're able to mitigate as much as possible that increase. But consumption will go up because we are adding a large energy user to our municipal inventory.
Thank you. And then there's a lot of climate anxiety out there. So I've got two questions related to that. One is, when we are reporting out about climate actions and everything, do you put it in terms, can we get information about, is it immediate, is it long-term, is it interim? So is the data ever put in those sorts of terms? I think you kind of touched on it in your presentation, but can the public, when they go to look at it, say, here's something that's happening right now, and I want it, but here's something I know will have a long-term impact, but we need to work on it.
So the way the Climate Action Plan currently is structured in the implementation chapter, it does have a relative scale of the greenhouse gas emission impact, but it's kind of low, medium, high, not necessarily of it'll have an impact today versus it'll have an impact in 10, 20 years. But that is something, as we think about a midpoint evaluation and kind of updating and rethinking of how we want to communicate, that we could potentially incorporate to say, yes, this is something you can do today, and the greenhouse gas emission benefit would be realized near term, medium term, or long term. So that is something we could look into.
Great, thank you. And then finally, for those people who are watching who have climate anxiety, what are a couple things they can do right now?
So folks can go to our website, and we have actions you can take organized by homeowners, by renters, and kind of as you think about yourself as an individual in Edina, how might that apply? Briefly, I think 3 immediate things folks can be thinking about is, first, get a home energy squad visit. It is a home energy audit that they will come to your home. Homeowners and renters in 1 to 4 units can participate, and the City of Edina covers 50% of the cost, so it's only $50 for Edina residents to participate. What Edina residents will get from that is a report on how that home uses energy and the opportunities to increase efficiency, as well as support to then follow through on actions, connection to financing, connection to rebates from the utilities, connection to rebates from the City of Edina. If you've already completed a home energy squad visit, look at your report and see what you might be able to do. There is funding available both from, as I mentioned, from the city, as well as the utilities just updated their utility rebates. So new higher funding amounts are available for a lot of actions. Next, I would encourage folks to look at renewable energy. Solar panels are not feasible on every home, but there are subscription programs. So the City of Edina subscribes to a program. Residents, both renters and homeowners, as long as you have an account with Xcel Energy, you can subscribe for, and it's a few additional dollars a month to say, I can power my home with up to 100% of renewable energy. That program's called Renewable Connect Flex. And so you can go to Xcel Energy's website, you can look up that and enroll immediately online, and it's effective immediately as part of your bill. And then the third one would just be encouraging folks to think about how they travel and move through Edina. So as we noted, a lot of reduction opportunity on the transportation side. Is there a trip that you can take that's not by a car? Can you walk? Can you bike? Can you bus? Or can you car share? Can you carpool with somebody and not do a single occupancy vehicle? So just would really encourage folks to start thinking about that as they make trips and move through the community.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Pierce. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for all the information. I have just one question. So on an earlier slide, which I'm just going to call the cliff slide, that's what it looked like. Mm-hmm. And I think you represented 2021 progress. You had kind of the 3 data points on there. And so my question is, there we go. There's so much information in this, and I do like the one summary slide where you articulated the percentage of transportation and building towards those goals. So my question is, how do we know that we're making progress, that we're going to reach our goal? And is that what this is intended to show?
Yes, so this graph is intended to show the progress towards that 2030 goal, which is a 45% reduction. The greenhouse gas inventory that's completed every 2 years is the way for us to look at data to say, are we actually on track? And so the inventory that will be completed this year, as I mentioned, will look at 2023 emissions. And so this graph will be updated with a new yellow diamond for 2023. It may be lower than 2021. It may be higher. We don't know because it's all just based on those emissions. So we can see that, and that inventory really actually informs of are we on track from a quantitative perspective.
And so is it incorrect for me to assume that if I'm looking at this as a trend of 3 dots, since we have 3 dots now, you're going to add a fourth, that trend is going to be, is indicating that we would exceed our goal if it continues that way?
If we continued, so if we were to reflect on the 3 data points that we have and say we've year over year have reduced emissions by this, average this amount, and say as a business as usual, let's just continue that forward. Yes, however, we do know through market changes that may shift, and so we could model that and look at it that way, but just in best practices in terms of greenhouse gas inventory wouldn't be something as a sustainability person would recommend we do. And so I think the way to really look at it is at this individual point in time compared to 2019, we have reduced emissions, and we're going to evaluate again to see are we still doing that, and if not, what changed between 2021 and 2023, and then how do we reflect on that in terms of future policy or future decision making?
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that report.
Great, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Keep up the good work.
Great, thanks.
We know we got ways to go, and we'll help you any way we can. We're here. And our residents feel the same way. We're just a reflection of them on this issue. All right, we're going to move on now to the public hearing portion of the agenda. We've got a couple of matters that we're going to take care of in that portion of the agenda, and they both involve requests for intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor licenses, and our clerk, Sharon Allison, has both of those matters, and we will first take up the request of Hope Edina, LLC, DBA Hope Breakfast Bar.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Clerk
Mayor.
Allison.
Members of the council, Hope Breakfast Bar is a new restaurant that is opening by the end of May at 7585 France Avenue. They've applied for an on-sale intoxicating liquor license as well as a Sunday sale liquor license. And after reviewing the application and doing a background check on both of the owners, I recommend approval. I believe Mr. Jeff Bornman, there he is in the audience, and would be more than willing to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, I will stand for any questions you may have for me.
Thank you. Questions at all for the clerk on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I should have added that I'm requesting approval tonight rather than holding over to the next council meeting.
Correct. Yeah, understood that. Yeah, we got our police report with things we normally would do, or we've done. And takes on a little bit different posture than some of the other public hearing matters that we have. Is there anyone who wishes to come and speak on behalf of Hope Breakfast Bar? You mentioned that somebody was in the audience. We hear good things about Hope Breakfast Bar.
Thank you.
And like to hear a little bit more, and then you get a chance to tell the public a little bit about it, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Jeff Bornman, one of the owners of Hope Breakfast Bar. So we're really excited for this next opening. The guys are really working hard and working away to get open, so we'll be in the next shockingly couple weeks here, so we're really excited to get going, and I'm really excited to be a part of the community here in Edina. So thank you.
So the clerk mentioned the address on France Avenue, but is it in a particular mall or?
Sure, it's at Centennial Lakes Plaza. So kind of right next to the Lazy Boy store and the taco store on the corner, and the new June furniture store will be right next door. So we'll finish out that side next to the FedEx.
Okay, very good. And you're thinking the end of May?
Yeah.
So within about a week or so?
Yeah. So we're coming fast.
Yeah,
So,
and you're
as supply chain goes, as long as everything comes in, we will be there.
and you've got the name breakfast in your name. And I take it you serve more than breakfast, however.
We actually don't. So
Okay.
we serve elevated brunch. Our hours are from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it's a place to get. We do have a burger, but it's got an egg on top, so it's technically still breakfast. And cake batter pancakes, our specialty breakfast sandwiches. So really an elevated breakfast experience.
All right, good. Other question? Yes, Member Risser.
My understanding is that you are a restaurant with a mission. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the name of our parent company is Purpose Restaurants. And so my partner, Brian Ingram, he's the chef. I'm the accountant. And anybody that's been around restaurants know that works because you can't have two creatives in one space. But we worked for a lot of restaurant companies. I came up in the Landry's group. Brian came up with Maggiano's. And so we saw a lot of things that we really didn't feel were healthy in the restaurant space. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of alcohol abuse. There's a lot of drug abuse. There's a lot of things when you have people working in close proximity with a lot of temptations, let us say. So we really decided to make it our mission in this business to do things differently. So we dedicate a portion of our sales really mainly focused in helping out hospitality workers in need. We also have done Brian does a lot of mission work worldwide, so we did hunger relief at the Turkey earthquakes. We did fire relief in Maui. We served 400,000 meals during the pandemic. We've given away 2 million pounds of food. So we really make it as our business. Brian always says, when you take money out of a community, you need to be willing to give it back. And that's really our mission, not just our hospitality community that we're a part of, but the greater communities we go into. So thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Just stand by. We're going to open this matter up for public testimony. It is a public hearing. And we'll be back with you momentarily. So go ahead and sit down and we'll see if we need to have you come back up. So I'm going to open this up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to testify regarding this matter? That is the prospective approval of the non-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor license for Hope Edina LLC DBA Hope Breakfast Bar. Hearing nothing and seeing no one coming forward, is there anyone online that wishes to testify regarding this matter? Let's get the contact information back up on the screen.
I do still have someone listening on the line. As a reminder, caller, if you'd like to provide testimony in this public hearing, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. That will signal your desire to speak, and then I will unmute you. I'm still not seeing activity, but because we haven't had a minute yet of our public hearing, I'd recommend we wait to give people a chance to call in. My clock shows that it's 8:36. I will come back to you at 8:37 or when I see a hand raised, whichever's first. It is now 8:37, and I still don't see a signal, so I think it's safe for you to move forward.
Very good. With regard to the potential approval of a new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor license for Hope Edina LLC DBA Hope Breakfast Bar, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves. Member Jackson seconds the closing of the public hearing with regard to the Hope Breakfast Bar request for intoxicating liquor license. Any further discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to approve a issuance of a new on-sale intoxicating Sunday sale liquor license to Hope Edina LLC DBA Hope Breakfast Bar?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves. Member Pierce seconds the motion as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the issuance and approval of a new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor license to Hope Edina LLC DBA Hope Breakfast Bar say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Motion carries, and the clerk will have me sign your liquor license, and we should be in good shape here for your opening.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here this evening. And then we have another matter that Clerk Allison is going to handle of the same nature, and that is a request for a new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor license for Putt Shack, Minneapolis Southdale LLC DBA Putt Shack. And Clerk Allison.
Yes, this one is the same as before. Putt Shack is or will be located at 330 Southdale Center. This will be on the 3rd floor. It will be a rooftop terrace venue. I believe they will be on top of the new grocery store that will be going in, Kowalski, I believe. I'm not certain about that. But same process as before. The application was reviewed, the background check was completed, and I recommend approval tonight. Mr. Josh St. Pierre is online and can answer any questions. He is the regional director for Putt Shack. In the audience tonight is Dan Christensen, their legal representative, and he probably also available for questions if you have any.
Right, very good. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Christensen or for Josh online? Mr. Christensen, we got you live here. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good evening,
Did
Mr.
I get your last name right?
Christians.
Christian.
Yep.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Daniel Christians, representative for Putt Shack. I don't have much to add of substance other than thank the city clerk and assistant city clerk for their work and assistance on this. I'm excited for this this new location. We have Mr. St. Pierre online to answer any operational questions, but I think it's going to be a great addition to Southdale Center, and happy to open it up to any questions that the council or Mr. Mayor has.
All right, let's see if the employee for the Putt Shack has any comments he wants to make. Josh, are you with us?
Just unmuted him. He's my caller.
Yes, I was. I am the caller. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Yeah, I mean, we're super excited to open up our Southdale location. It's tech-infused mini golf, so it's the first self-scoring mini golf. It's a globally inspired menu. We've got everything from burgers to wood-fired octopus ready to offer the citizens of Edina. We're really excited to get this one open. Me personally, I can't wait to make some trips up there. I'm a regional director, so I travel all over the country. I haven't been up there yet, but looking at the community, I and we as the brand are just very excited to be a part of it. So we thank you for considering our application.
All right, Mr. St. Pierre, what's the timing of the potential opening?
Right now, we're looking at early September. We should have significant completion of the venue by early July. But it's going to take. We take a lot of pride in our training process. We should be employing around 200 associates at this location. So it takes us a little bit of time to get them up to speed, and we like to do that in a finished venue.
All right, very good. Other questions from council members at this point in time? All right, Mr. St. Pierre and Mr. Christian, of course, Mr. Christian's been here. He realizes this is a public hearing matter. I'm going to open this matter up now for public testimony. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify regarding this matter? All right, hearing No one coming forward here at City Hall. Anybody online other than Mr. St. Pierre?
No, sir.
All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing in this matter?
So moved.
Second.
Member Pierce moves, Member Jackson seconds. We close the public hearing matter on this request to approve a new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor license for Putt Shack Minneapolis Southdale LLC DBA Putt Shack. Any further discussion on closing the public hearing? All those in favor of closing the public hearing in this matter say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Hearing is closed. And is there a colleague of mine who cares to make a motion to approve the new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor licenses for Putt Shack Minneapolis Southdale LLC DBA Putt Shack?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves. Member Pierce seconds the issuance of the new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor licenses for Putt Shack. Any further discussion? All those in favor of issuance of the new on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sale liquor licenses to Putt Shack Minneapolis Southdale LLC DBA Putt Shack say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and we will get that license put together. Thank you, Mr. Christian, for being here. Thank you. And Mr. St. Pierre, thanks for bearing with us here during the council meeting this evening, and look forward to seeing you when you're up here.
Absolutely. Thank you, too. Thank
you. All right. Next, we're going to move on to the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda. First matter here is Resolution 2024-39, accepting various donations. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-39?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves.
Second.
Member Pierce seconds the adoption of Resolution 2024-39, accepting donations on behalf of the City of Edina. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the Resolution 2024-39 say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. We've got some generous gifts this reporting period. For the Braemar Golf Course, Doug Polich, a nice generous $200 gift to the Memorial Fund to build that up a bit. And then some memorial benches at Centennial Lakes, Renee Chang and Catherine Landman, both wonderful donations. Renee Chang, $3,200 for a memorial bench, and Catherine Landman, $4,200 for a memorial bench. And then some in-kind donations over at the Senior Center by various donors. So thanks to Games by James, Senior Community Guide, Home Instead, Betty Gustafson, and then there was one anonymous gift as well. And then a donation to the Edina Police Department from the Edina Community Foundation to the community Police Community Impact Fund in the amount of $2,587. So thanks to all those donors. Their names will be on the website, posted on the website. And next matter in front of us this evening is Ordinance 2024-03. Involves a resolution, potential rezoning, involves the properties next door to each other at 5120 and 5124 Hankerson Avenue, and Director Teague has this matter on which we had a public hearing a couple of weeks ago. Director Teague.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to quickly summarize the request here, again, the proposal is to tear down the two existing single-family homes on the property and build two-unit duplex or townhomes, so 4 units total, replacing 2. The specific request is a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide the site from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The medium-density range is between 5 and 12 units an acre. This project would be 9 units per acre. Second request is a preliminary rezoning from R1 to PUD. The PUD, with the rezoning, these two properties would become part of the Hankerson Townhome PUD to the south. Currently, the total site area for that PUD is 0.68 acres. If these two parcels were attached to that PUD, it would be 1.12 acres. The proposed project meets the development standards that have been established in that PUD district. Also, a subdivision is requested so that each individual unit can be sold separately. The city, again, has complete discretion to approve or deny this request. Because of that, staff has outlined or provided two alternatives for approval and denial, whichever direction the council would like to go. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the requests on a 6-3 vote. They felt that it did fit the neighborhood and that PUD is the most appropriate in this instance because of the PUD to the south. Staff would ask that the council make two motions. The first would be just on Resolution 2024-33. That's for the comprehensive plan amendment. And then the second motion would be the preliminary rezoning, the subdivision, and first reading of the ordinance. So with that, I will turn it back to the City Council for discussion.
All right, thank you. Council members, thoughts on this before we go one direction or another with a motion? Member Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to start with something that is really not part of the question, but the speeding along the alleyway. And I know a number of the comments on Better Together were about people speeding on the alleyway. I hope that when people experience bad traffic in their neighborhood or misuse of the roadway, they call the police and ask them to patrol it. We want people to be safe, and we have speed limits for a reason. So that was really not about the zoning, but I did want to acknowledge the concerns that people had about that. So this is a good idea with being put together in sort of an awkward way. And I know that the Planning Commission is looking at reviewing our zoning code and everything. I don't know how this could have been done without a PUD, but I would prefer that it had come to us not as a PUD. I want to review our use of that and make sure that we're using it for getting public good out of it. That being said, I spent a lot of time thinking the last couple of weeks about what cities are. And in my mind, a city is a living entity. And if a home was built in 1950, when a person's born in 1950, they're new and shiny. And a home is new and shiny. And that's almost 75 years ago now. And over time, we all age, and buildings age, and cities age. And the wonderful thing about cities is that they can rebuild themselves. And while it's really important to preserve things that we can, it's also important to acknowledge that buildings do age. And so this is a living city. It's a growing city. People develop here and they invest in our city. And I think that's a good thing because we want it to be revitalized. And I used to work for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. And they got a lot of Greater Minnesota cities get local government aid. One of the elements of that is the age of the buildings in a community. When all the buildings in a community are old, the tax base really drops off. And so we have to acknowledge the lifeblood that new houses bring to our community. I think that these single-story townhomes are very nice in their scale for the site, and I would like to see them built. So I'm feeling like I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, generally. Yeah. Other than your reservations about PUD being the tool. Okay. All right. Others? Member Risser.
I do not see this PUD ask as reasonable. I also feel that we are at a point where we need to really be more purposeful and mindful about what we're losing when we abandon our code. These sites are not large enough to accommodate the proposed development and retain the required setback variances. And that means we are going to end up with structures that will occupy 40% of the land. And if you look at our code for R2, double dwelling units can only occupy 25%. They can only have 25% building coverage. That is our code. And we didn't even talk about that. For a subdivision, you need to have certain things. You cannot have a backyard, a rear yard that is less than 25 feet in depth, okay? And I've been in my backyard, I've been weeding, I've been looking at my backyard and my neighbor's backyard. I'm on a corner lot. I'm kind of close to Valley View. The lot behind me is a corner lot. I'm looking at how we have allowed townhouses to move forward and just imagining all of that backyard disappearing and having buildings set right there. And I think about the people who live on Hankerson Avenue. I think about the images that we saw. And I think about how with the proposal and the design, we see how these proposed buildings compare to the townhouses that exist, but we don't see the height differential with that neighbor next door. And imagining you no longer have a backyard that is next to a regular backyard. You've got a garage that goes right up to it. So yes, we need densification. And I went back, I listened to the Planning Commission meeting. The gist of their arguments for supporting PUD was, we don't have a tool that allows us to do this. PUD is the only way we can get it done. And I think about, what if we had applied that kind of philosophy to accessory dwelling units and did not go down a real thoughtful, careful plan that made it possible for us to move forward in a way that will protect neighboring properties. What if we had just said, oh, you know, well, we don't have an ADU ordinance, let's just consider this another garage. And, oh, by the way, you don't have to apply, you don't have to fit the requirements for setback variances, or, you know, go ahead, build 40%. You know, we don't do that, and we shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't do that with this. The other thing is that at the Planning Commission and also here, the possibility that this is spot zoning came up. I don't feel like I have received an adequate response to that, because what we're asking for is to allow the developer to do something that is so radically different from what could be done if it was continued to be R1. We also learned from Planner Teague that you could have a single family house go up and abide by the setbacks, and it could be over 6,000 square feet. And so I would like to say that, in a way, what we're seeing here is a lack of imagination. If you could build over 6,000 square feet legally with the setbacks, surely there is an architect out there that could design a double dwelling unit with that and maintain the pervious surface, maintain the potential for trees, maintain that backyard, and not have such a huge imposition on the neighbors. We're being asked to amend our comprehensive plan. That is a huge ask, and it's being led by a developer. And comprehensive plans are supposed to be about the visions of the community. And so there's so many reasons why I feel I can't support this. It does not reflect our code. It does not reflect, this is not the way we should do development in Edina. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments, and I would start with, this will sound funny, but I agree with both of my colleagues. But I'm kind of coming at this from a different perspective. And so I'd start with saying, I do believe we need medium density. We need it on the west side of Edina. And I think this area is a perfect place to do that. But I don't like using PUD to do that. And a couple weeks ago, I used the term spot zoning, and you answered my question that it's technically not spot zoning. But what we would end up doing is, if there's another house, another development opportunity to do the same thing, we'd have to apply for a PUD again. And so I like to kind of step back and think strategically about an area. And for me, when I think about it that way, I think we would do the work to say this area, or a portion of this area, would be zoned R2. And then the points that Member Risser made, right, would be spot on, right? Well, you can't do 4 townhomes in that area just based on the way the code is written. You could probably do 3, would perhaps meet code. But if we rezone portions of that area as R2, then it's in our code. We can be specific about what we want to see and how we want to see it. And then we would go forward that way as opposed to having another PUD as we go. And in my opinion, I think Edina, we live with the legacy of protecting our R1 zone. Now, I've used this term before. Like, I think of that as actually debt to the community. Over a large period of time, it's like a technical debt, right? You've got old equipment, and you're going to keep maintaining it. Well, it's going to cost you more to do that. I kind of think of our code in the way that we protected R1, especially on the west side, as debt that we at some point have to address if we want to increase density and have more medium density on the west side. We got to lean into that and figure out, well, how do we need to adjust our zone, our code, and how do we need to adjust our comprehensive plan from a holistic perspective to allow that? And so with those comments, this was tough for me. I don't support, so I would deny. However, we've talked about this need in the area, and so I agree with Member Jackson. Like, we do need townhomes, we need home ownership options. The only thing I add to that is I actually would be ecstatic if in our policy and in our code, and I don't know if this is legally something we could do or not, but I would love to have us be able to say, well, in this area, its zone is R2, and if you're going to build 3 townhomes, we want the average price of those 3 to be at or below the current median home value in Edina. So things like that, I would like to see us be able to say, all right, we are going to, as a city, incentivize small builders, where if we're going to replat this lot, then the city will ensure that if we're replatting one lot into 2, that second lot is a buildable lot, so that cost is not bared by the developer. We've heard that one of the challenges for smaller developers actually is the costs to the land and some of the additional costs that go along with making that lot developable, more developable. Developable. And so I admit probably 90% of everything I just said, you're not asking about that today. And not only that, these ideas are probably ideas that go into us redoing our comprehensive plan in 2028. I understand that. And so I have to put the blinders on and answer the question that's before me today. And I would be in the position of denying today, but my hope would be there would be something we could do in this particular case to be able to bring this product to market. And then maybe the last thing I'll say, we had a meeting with a realtor, and this was months ago. And I think we may have alluded to it in the last meeting. One of the products that our market in Edina is missing, we talk a lot about the missing middle in this townhome product. Well, the other product that the realtors talked about is for aging homeowners to have a kind of single floor living. And when I look at the sketch plan, there's an opportunity to even do that in this space. And so I do think it's a product that we need. It's just incumbent on us as a city to figure out the most sustainable way to make that happen within our code. And today, as each one of these come up, it's an indication that to fix it means we need to go back to the code and figure out how to really enable it so that it doesn't have to come before the council each time one of these particular opportunities come up.
Thank you, Member Pierce. Member Agnew.
Thank you. I'll also echo all of my fellow council members. My first reaction to this is that I just really dislike PUD for this use case. I think, especially hearing from members of the community after watching the Planning Commission meeting after this dialogue, it just doesn't feel like the right application. And I say all that because I'm not against PUD. Like I really like PUD, and I'm not necessarily thinking that we need to use it less. I like that it's a tool in our toolbox. But I think we need to be really intentional of when we use it and how we use it. And this, to me, doesn't speak PUD. It's R2. And so then, it's like, okay, do we approve it as an R2 or do we approve it as a PUD? And then we get into the considerations of spot zoning, and it's kind of spot zoning with one, or you don't like the zoning with the other. So then what I did is I took a few steps back, right? Tried to get out of the murkiness of our zoning laws right now, and really questioned, do I think this development is right? And I echo a lot of what Member Pierce said of, I like this single story living. I like increasing density. I particularly like increasing density within this area. I think that Commissioner Alkire also noted how right now the pedestrian connectivity to Grandview isn't as strong as it could be. And so I think that there's so much more that we could and should do to make this area a part of a cohesive strategic plan. And so that's where I then kind of come back to, as much as I hate sometimes getting bogged down with projects that I really do like, right? I like that single story living. I like increased density. But I also think this is one of those situations where we can and should take a pause and think strategically about a little bit more of the site. Consider, do we make the entire block, I don't know, right, R2? Have conversations with the community and really try and understand what are the needs of that immediate area? How do we connect it to the broader area? And are there other blocks within that area that also might be areas of change? So I think with that, I'm leaning towards not approving this tonight, but I do want to see a project like this on this site. I just want us as a city council, as a city, to be intentional, strategic, and bring people along with the process.
Thank you, Member Agnew. I've really wrestled with this one too. I think all of us have so many elements of it that we like. I remember when we thought comprehensively about the demolition of that apartment building where the 8 townhouses are presently located. And I can distinctly remember thinking, okay, you got this apartment building. I think there was one house to the north that was included in the building pad, if you will, for the 8 townhouses. And I remember thinking at the time, all right, this is okay. This makes sense. Get rid of this tired old apartment building. It looks like it's from Miami Beach from 1954. And put up these beautiful townhouses. But I also remember thinking, I don't want to see anybody come back and try to encroach further into the neighborhood, because to the north, it's all single-family homes, and some of them are tear-down rebuilds. They're brand-new homes, not that far down the line. And then when this opportunity came along for Mr. Dene, where he could pick up 2 more homes and then do something that was not as tall, it seemed like it fit more in the neighborhood. I thought, yeah, it's a nice-looking product, but I couldn't shake that feeling I had about, okay, no more, you know, other than those 8 townhouses, let's not encroach more into a single-family neighborhood, because the single family neighborhood that exists today is a really reasonable use of that property and all those properties to the north. And while these have some single-family characteristics, it just, I think I'm more interested in protecting the integrity of the single-family neighborhood than I am encroaching into it with multiple living options that would actually increase the number of people that could live there and enjoy single-level living. I just worry about that single-family neighborhood. And those 2 houses are small. Maybe no one will. I don't know what's going to happen with them. I doubt Mr. Dene has actually purchased them. I can see where he'd have a contingent purchase, but I just can't get comfortable with the idea. And to Member Agnew's point, I'm also, I've been around long enough where I've seen PUD work really effectively. And I'm just not sure it's the right tool here, because when we do PUD, we usually have a give to get. And I'm not sure what we're getting for it. Not sure. So despite the fact that the Planning Commission liked it on a majority basis, I have to join my colleagues that oppose it for a variety of reasons, but the reasons I would say, because we have such broad latitude here, is that I don't want further encroachment by multifamily housing into a single-family neighborhood. That's my feeling on it, I guess, and succinctly stated. So now, let's go back to work here. The first matter Director Teague wanted us to take up was, let me get it right here, was 2024-33, which would approve the comp plan change. That would have required a supermajority vote. So let's go to 2024-33. Oops, excuse me. Director Teague has 2 pathways here for us. I'm looking at Resolution 2024-33, which denies the comprehensive plan amendment for Hankerson on this particular property. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-33 in the form of denying a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide 5120 and 5124 Hankerson Avenue from low-density residential to medium-density residential?
So moved.
Member Risser moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of Resolution 2024-33, which would deny the comprehensive plan amendment. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Member Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to go on the record. I am so pleased with the range of thoughts of my colleagues, and I'm convinced to go along with what I've heard.
Yeah, well, regardless, thank you for that. And certainly some all relevant thoughts on this project. All right, we've got a motion and a second on 2024-33 as a denial of the comprehensive plan amendment. All those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2024-33 denying a comprehensive plan amendment for the properties involved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Then Resolution 2024-30. Let's go to the oops. That finger. 2024-30, denying preliminary zoning from R1 single dwelling unit district to PUD. Is there a motion to deny that preliminary rezoning from R1 single dwelling unit district to PUD?
So moved.
We got a motion by Member Pierce, second by Member Risser, to adopt Resolution 2024-30 in a form denying preliminary rezoning from R1 single dwelling unit district to PUD, planned residential district 20 to become part of the adjacent Grandview Townhome PUD and subdivision at 5120 and 5124 Hankerson Avenue. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion of the Resolution 2024-30 as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The preliminary rezoning approval is denied. I think that's it, Director Teague? Yep.
That's it.
Mr. Dene, thanks for coming in with an idea. Sorry it didn't work. You can hear people up here saying, though, that they want it to work somewhere. It's a good idea you've got here. But maybe when we get, you should take a look at the public works site. We want to do a bunch of, I mean, the sentiment of the council, I think, is that we'd like to look at townhouse ownership over at public works site. And also there's a potential opportunity down at the new fire station site. If you visit with the Edina Housing Foundation, you're an experienced townhouse developer. And I think that's what's needed to look at these two sites. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are now at, it's always hard to say no to one of your own, isn't it, especially? Anyway, we're at commission correspondence. Oh, excuse me, we're not. We got another matter in front of us. Yeah, we got the endodontics. I already got that approved in my head, so no presumptions here, but. All right, let's look at resolution 2024-31. I couldn't figure out what you guys were still sitting back there for. So that's how far ahead of it I was. This is a site plan request with variances and subdivision for Edina Endodontics, 7300 Metro Boulevard. Director Teague has this matter as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So again, the proposal to build a 6,000 square foot dental office. Property is zoned planned office district. The use is permitted. The request is for site plan review and a couple of variances, the first floor height from 20 to 10 feet, and then a side yard setback from 20 to 10 feet. As you recall, the building is shifted to the south in order to bring it up closer to the street to avoid that parking in the front. Planning Commission recommendation is for approval on an 8-0 vote. So with that, staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the resolution before you this evening.
All right. Thanks, Director Teague. Questions from colleagues or comments? Is there a motion to adopt resolution? Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you for listening to our comments at Sketch Plan. I am so impressed with how you were able to accommodate the privacy of your patients and their convenience and our zoning requirements. It was really kind of, when you came back, I was really surprised and pleased. I just want to say thank you for that.
And traffic flow.
And traffic flow, yes, much safer. So, yeah.
This is Weston. I'm going to comment about our meeting, our walk with the mayor. You're leaving. All right. Very good. If you want to, just know that I'm going to say you were there in a few minutes. All right. Thank you for that, Member Jackson. Any other comments from council members with regard to this project? Yes, Member Agnew.
Thank you. So with this project in particular, I know that there were quite a few changes that were made. When I reflected back on the Planning Commission discussion on it, you know, I was really struck by Commissioner David Alkire's reflection on our need to have a Cahill District plan for this site. And I think what's hard for me in having this presented, especially at this time, is understanding that we haven't come back to that and we haven't made as much progress. And I know we've talked about it at a work session, and I know that we have a plan on that as a city, but I think that this is such a key area. And so it's hard when we have both, you know, Commissioner Alkire, Commissioner Miranda reflecting on the fact that this wouldn't be what we have in that plan, right? What we would be looking for is more height, more density, like more than a single-use building put onto a parking pad. And so I'm struggling with this one. I know all of the improvements that were made. I appreciate kind of pulling the adjustment of the building, but I'm just so I think, torn about what this area is going to become in even 10 years. And as we continue really making kind of site-by-site specific decisions, what is that potentially locking us into within this area? Those are my thoughts. That's what gives me pause on this one.
Trying to think of past experiences that might help you. I think I've found over time that the market and timing wait for no person. And sometimes you get caught in this situation. And I remember early on when I think I just got to be a mayor, and we were doing a plan for the Southdale district, and the Weston project came up before we were done with the plan. So was it going to fit the plan or not fit the plan? I don't know, but we had to take it on because they didn't want to wait because of market conditions, and we took it on and approved the Weston project, and then the Southdale plan kind of followed suit. But I don't personally feel like taking, I think you would describe it well, making use of an area of a surface parking lot to create something that's really beneficial to our community and will be an enhancement is something that ties us to a certain standard. It will exist there, but what can exist around it over time will maybe be something more akin to what you're thinking about. So, but you'll have to resolve your own conflict one way or another, but I just try to offer that as some assistance. Member Risser.
One thing I want to emphasize is that I think it's really beautiful when a building is developed in a way that is appropriate for its use. And I applaud the developer for saying, we need to have variances on height and transparency. I believe that did happen in this case. And also, maybe it doesn't have to be a really big building. Maybe it can be a smaller building, than what we think in terms of development. And I think this is the most appropriate building for the developer, and it's great. It's on a parking lot, and maybe we can pull ourselves back from density has to be big density. Let's try to think about, can we build a little smaller, and can we help in terms of bringing down those greenhouse gases that are associated with buildings, because buildings and transportation are the biggest contributors, and we learned that tonight. So plug for the small,
All right. Yeah, good little conversation. So we got is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-31, which would approve the site plan variances and subdivision at 7300 Metro Boulevard for Edina Endodontics?
So moved.
Jackson moves.
Second.
Member Risser seconds. The adoption of the motion is stated. Further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion, which is Resolution 2024-31, approving the site plan variances and subdivision at 7300 Metro Boulevard for Edina Endodontics, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Matter carries. Motion's adopted. Resolution is approved. Thank you. No, now you can leave. All right, we're on to commission correspondence now. I get myself back on the right spot in the agenda. Anything? I don't think there's other than what we had on the dais. Manager comments. You got a few to make here.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'll start with a legislative session wrap-up report. Most of what I'm going to share with you tonight was work that was completed, a review that was created by Katie Sen, who has done lobbyist work for our city. A lot of our provisions that we were looking forward to this year did not pass, but I'll start with one that did. There was a bill that we supported early on that made a correction to a capital investment bill last year to increase the scope of the things that we could spend our state grant on that we received for our fire station project. Originally, that project had a very tight, or that spending could be a very tight scope. We asked for an expansion of the scope so that we could spend the entire grant that we received, and that was passed this year, and we will be taking advantage of that later. A couple of things that did not pass, though, is the Highway 100 Vernon Avenue Bridge bonding request. We asked for $5.3 million. We were in the final bill for $2 million. It did not pass during those final kind of chaotic hours of the session. We had a request in the bonding bill for $10.5 million for an aquatic center, our aquatic center project. That did not pass. There were a number of cities that asked for sales tax exemptions on construction materials. We had a couple requests, one for materials that we were going to buy for our Braemar Park master plan project, another for our Fred Richards master plan project. That bill did not pass. We asked for some extensions of some tax increment districts on France Avenue, 2 districts in particular. We wanted 10-year extensions, and that did not pass. One bill that did pass that we wish didn't pass was that the ability to do rental inspections for community residential facilities, so small group homes. We have been doing those inspections. That provision or that authority was taken from us this year in a bill that did pass. We're not sure quite how that's going to be working out, but we will follow up on that. Another bill that looked like it could be problematic for the future of local sales taxes in the state also did not pass in the final hours. And those are the big ones that we were tracking this year that didn't. One of them passed, but most of them did not.
Well, but I think the point is that it's not us they were picking on. There was no tax bill and there was no bonding bill.
No bonding bill, no tax bill, no sports betting bill, no ranked choice voting, which did not pass.
I mean, some of the most substantive work that they engaged in didn't get anywhere.
Right. So that's the report on the session. The good news is the next session of the legislature starts on January 14th, 2025. Yeah. So they will come back, and we'll have some time with you before they come back to think about what our legislative platform is going to be in the upcoming year. My second report is about the South Metro Public Safety Training Facility. The training facility is celebrating 20 years of life this year. It was built in 2004. The facility is owned and operated. It was owned and operated by the cities of Eden Prairie, Edina, Bloomington, and the Metropolitan Airports Commission. And it's there to train police and fire and other kinds of law enforcement and safety personnel. I've been involved in this project from the very beginning. It's one of the projects that I've been able to follow in my career. My involvement started as the city manager of Eden Prairie, and I've been on the board since the first day the place was open. I became the chair of the board in 2011 when I came to work here. The training facility is involved in a significant expansion. We're building a tactical training building that we'll use primarily for police and other law enforcement training. We were successful in getting 2 different $1 million grants from the state of Minnesota, one in 2021, one in 2023. That project now is in the process of getting its plans approved by a couple of outside entities. One is the B3 group that resides at the University of Minnesota. They review public entity building plans for energy conservation purposes. So we're waiting for their approval. We think we're going to get it. And also from the Department of Public Safety, who is managing the grant funds coming to us. And we think we're going to get that as well. The project is going to require a conditional use permit from the city. So the Planning Commission is going to handle that on June 12th, and it will come to the City Council on June 18th. Provided positive occurrences for that, that project will start public bidding later this summer, and hopefully it gets occupied in November of 2024. Finally, last year I was appointed to the Board of Directors for the League of Minnesota Cities. That term started in June of 23, and my term ends in June of 26. I attend monthly board meetings of the league and also an annual retreat in the fall. At our last, I think I've not talked about this before. I just wanted to give you a kind of a feedback on what a typical board meeting might be, and we had one last week. We received a long report, as you might guess, from the Intergovernmental Relations team, the lobbyist team, because they were right at the end of the session and they're making some predictions about what they might get and might not. We accepted the results of a new performance review process for our executive director there, Luke Fisher, and also approved a new pay scale for the director position as well. We reviewed and approved a shared cost allocation model for the operating costs of the building. The building is shared. We think of that as the League of Minnesota Cities building, but a fair amount of it is occupied by folks from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. And so they do some division of operating costs there, heat and cooling and et cetera. So we talked about a new formula about how to divide that up. We adopted a new maximum dues figure for 24-25. This number kind of operates similar to how our preliminary levy operates at a city level. You approve it at one level. You can always bring it down, but you can't bring it up after that. So we approved that at the last meeting. We always get reports from all the different league departments at our board meetings, which is always very interesting. And the meeting ended with the recognition of 7 board members who are departing from the board this year. And that's the end of that report. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Member Risser, anything for the good of the order here?
Just that the Edina Art Fair will be happening May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd.
Good, thank you. Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So last week I did a sit-along in the Dispatch after Member Agnew recommended it. It was fantastic. The professionalism and compassion and alertness, just everything. I just praise to the top. They're wonderful. And if you are looking for a really interesting job that's different every day and has a huge impact on people's lives, we are hiring. And I would love to let people not have to work so many overtime hours, but it's fascinating. And I highly recommend checking it out if you want to serve the public.
Very good. Member Pierce.
Nothing from me this evening. Thank you.
All right. Member Agnew?
I went on a ride along last week. So I went with fire and ambulance, and I cannot rave enough about how, to echo Member Jackson's comments, how professional and sincere and caring. And I'm just I was texting my husband. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to leave tonight not crying. It's amazing, right? The care and the compassion that they gave to everyone. And it was really fascinating just hearing about the different experiences and how many times different firefighters tried to get into Edina in particular. And it was just really beautiful to see overall, and got some really good conversations about the new fire station. I think that there's some good excitement, and it was great to talk to some of those who had participated in putting together the plans. So I had an amazing amazing time there, and want to, encourage others to go and check out that experience as well. And then the only other thing that I had is, at some point I'd love to get an update, Director Teague, on parking and how the Planning Commission is doing on that work item. I know it's something we had talked about, but I don't know that we've heard much about it. So I don't know if that's something we can do in a work session or at some future meeting, or even just offline. I'd love to hear how things are coming along with that. But otherwise, that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks. Okay. We had Walk with the Mayor on Saturday down at Pamela Park, and we've got a friend visiting from New York at our house, and he wanted to come along and see what that experience was like. Bob Coteen was there, and Janie Weston, who's sitting in the back of the room, and Janie is ardent, I say, amateur naturalist, and she took us into the kind of the depths of Pamela Park on the trails through the trees, and pointed out all kinds of things to us. And we looked at things that needed to be addressed in the park, and I had most of them in my head, but I said, why don't you send me an email? And I got this comprehensive email from her covering all the different items, from a wooden light pole with a woodpecker nest in it that needs to be shored up so it doesn't tip over, to ADA accessibility issues, chips on paths, and we just covered a variety of different topics. I've sent that email that you sent me on to the Park and Rec director as well as the city manager, so we'll see what happens there. So it was a nice little outing, and the person from New York enjoyed your company and your observations. So, and then don't forget Kowalski's opening May 30th, next week, 9:45, I think it is, in the morning. And then we have been in the process. Jennifer Bennerod is so well organized. Every year the mayor gives out 6 commendations to organizations and individuals, and we're about halfway through. And so not yesterday, but Monday, we did 2 of them. Yeah, it's yesterday. We gave out the Mayor's Service Club commendation, which is a kind of a loose definition of service club, to the Edina Woodcrafters over at the community center, who managed to restore the clock down at Centennial Lakes, and so wanted to recognize that. They did some really great restorative work there, and we had a good conversation with them over there. And then we went over to the Edina Morningside Women's Club luncheon. I got there at the end of that luncheon and gave Libby Chechi the Mayor's Individual Service Award for all the work that she did, being the club president from 2019 to 2021, and had some glowing comments about her from the people that nominated her. And then today we went to the high school to give out the Youth Service Commendation, and ran into all kinds of folks that we knew over there. All of us probably know. Evangelia Carusos, who was the recipient of the award, has just gotten glowing reviews from both the superintendent's office and then also from one of her teachers. And she was also part of the group that was in Current Jam. And I think, was your daughter in Current Jam? Your younger daughter?
No, she's in college now.
Oh,
so that
somebody asked me, was that last year?
Yeah, last year.
I thought no. I think the youngest one's gone now, but somebody thought no. I think it's James. No, I think he's run out of daughters in high school.
Well, I've got one in the 7th grade.
Oh, 7th grade. Right. And she wasn't in Current Jam.
She wasn't in Current Jam.
I think Stacy asked me, "Is that James's daughter?" I said, "I don't think so." Anyway, that was another great production for Current Jam, the talent show, and congratulations to Evangelia Carusos for a great high school career. And that's it for me. Cause anything from anybody else? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Member Jackson, second by Member Agnew, to adjourn the meeting of the City Council this Tuesday evening, May 21, 2024, at 9:37 p.m. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We stand adjourned.